Welcome to Beyond the Transaction, a podcast focused on payments for the ISV and Fintech world. I'm your host, Todd Linden, and I'm CEO of Woodforest Acceptance Solutions. Each week, I'll sit down with leaders across payments and financial technology to unpack how real businesses scale through better data, smarter infrastructure, and aligned partnerships. If you care about how payments actually impact growth, you're in the right place. Welcome to Beyond the Transaction. I'm here today with Layla Adnani from our Chief Marketing Officer. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for joining me today.
So, we are officially kicking off Beyond the Transaction. And in order to do so, we want to give your listeners a bit of understanding of what they can expect from the show and really why this exists. So, of course, you're going to be talking to leaders across the industry throughout this journey. But I think there's a gap between payment processing and real business outcomes. And there's a space in between that I would love for you to kind of jump in on.
Yeah, the gaps are many, right? We talk about it all the time, and to a great extent, we've reinvented or invented our company to reinvent the space to provide technology and answers to those gaps. And those gaps, if I can simply, kind of state it, is that payment processors forever have occupied such a big space inside any organization, any business that accepts payments, yet they fulfill so little of it. And I think that that's a problem, and that's a problem that is solved by other industries and other professional services organizations that really shouldn't be involved in the transaction. And what we hope to do with this podcast is really kind of expose some of those gaps and try to fill them in a partner centric way.
One of the major problems that I hear you talk about often is that payments are becoming commoditized. So, give us a little bit of light on that.
Well, the race to zero has been going on since day one, which is unbelievable. Again, it goes back to those gaps. If we're doing nothing but processing a transaction and all transactions look alike, that's you get that race to zero, and that is how commoditization starts. And that's in rethinking the importance of that transaction by adding value to that transaction and doing more on behalf of your customers through transaction processing is how you solve that.
One big thing that we do at Woodforest is looking at the data beyond the transaction. So, how that can inform our customers of really brilliant business insights that you really can't get anywhere else. Can you talk to me more about understanding that piece of processing?
Of the data.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've heard me say it a million times, right? It's one of those things where I think that a transaction that was consummated yesterday by a consumer for $100 may be worth $1 million a year from now. And and that's true. It's really being able to pull together the story of what has happened, what's transpired within a business that resulted in good or bad outcomes. And that can be easily directed with a payment partner that can replay that story and help change that story so that the outcomes are more consistently on the good side. And that's all done through business intelligence and data analytics, which traditionally have been so hard to get to. It's hard just to get to the data, let alone be able to use the data. And that's a big part of what we're trying to accomplish and what we're solving on behalf of our partners and our customers.
Talk to me a little bit about how infrastructure decisions are shaping revenue, margins, and growth for fintech, ISVs, and our partners.
Well, that's a big one to unpack. There's two types of programs the way I see it traditionally. There's, give us your business and we'll give you the ability to process payments if you're an ISV, for instance. Um, there's another model where there might be a little more assistance in helping an ISV or some sort of a software process, company, um, through a reciprocating referral program, which is more prevalent in the restaurant space because there's big players out there that um, are very much in demand. But when there's true infrastructure, the way we like to think about it, we provide the ability to take our infrastructure, integrate with our platform, and we give you we give the ISV all of the necessary tools to operate their business, participate in payments, own their payment relationships, and then on the back end, with the data that we talked about just a minute ago, give them the insights to not only improve their program, but to provide feedback to their customers. And that's a that's a lot of work. That's a big infrastructure play, but it's one that can shape the success of any ISV that's really looking to participate and provide payments to its customers or integrate payments into their software.
While we're talking about ISVs and SaaS platforms, what do you think they're misunderstanding the most about payments?
I think that many of them just misunderstand how fully they can integrate into the process, how payments can be part of what they do, not something that they need to be separate from. I also believe that many of the processors and even independent sales organizations to a certain degree have have kind of built a wall between themselves and the ISV when it comes to payments, and that's been a little heavy-handed, and actually ends up being to the detriment of the end customer, to the merchant, having to procure relationships separately, service these relationships separately, don't do anybody any good, and they certainly don't do the merchant any good or any favors.
So that brings me to my next question of why are B2B payments fundamentally different when we're thinking about them than consumer payments?
So different. We have the most in the United States, in the U.S. The interchange system, if we can call it that, is terribly complicated, and the breadth of different payments that exists in U.S. interchange is very difficult to master, let alone even stay on top of it. And with B2B being really still very much an emerging market in the eyes of the card brands and into businesses in general, what's happening today is we want to provide to a B2B payments environment, we want to provide the best interchange qualification we can and make the card the preferred option of payment. But in order for us to be able to do that, we really need to be able to enhance the data that accompanies that transaction in order to achieve optimal interchange rates. And I think the fact that that is missing so much of the time when payment processors address B2B businesses, b- businesses that are contemplating accepting cards as payments, they miss the advantages they can bring from an interchange perspective by not properly setting up the merchant and educating the merchant on what the necessary data is needed to optimize interchange qualification. So what happens is you have a lot of payment companies, whether they be independent sales organizations, even some ISVs, and even a lot of the banks, they look at and approach prospective B2B customers with bad information that ends up making the card, as a payment option undesirable. Just too much money. Why, they look at everything. Is this going to cost me 3.5%? I'm not interested. And that's why it's really important that those who work in this space, those who want to be part of the, kind of the blue sky that is B2B payments, they really do need to educate themselves on how to provide a payment system that can accommodate and achieve the right interchange qualification for those kind of transactions.
I'm going to jump a little off script here, but it's clear that you are truly a master of payments. You've been in this game for a very, very long time. And a lot of people listening to this might not know your background quite as well as I know your background. So, how did you get this well versed into this industry? Because I don't think there's anyone out there who knows it better than you do.
Well, that's scary. I'm not a master. I don't think it can be mastered. What you do is you keep your eyes open, you empathy gather a lot. And then you try to one of the things that I think has helped me is that a lot of the work that I did around payments, not necessarily running a payment company or running a technology company, and I've done both, but I also was part of some policy making, had some policy making roles, whether they be on committees, boards, steering committees. Those type participating in those types of things gave me a little bit more of an eyes wide open look at the way payments are evolving. And I think it's part of the reason that we partnered with Visa, frankly, is getting to the source of payments and getting aligned with where the ideas and the manifestation of how payments are going to be shaped in the mid and long term is really important to being able to stay ahead, educate your partners the right way, and provide them with the tools that are necessary for them to be a success and for the tools that are necessary for them to be successful with merchants. So I guess, if I had to put it in a nutshell, I would say that it was those opportunities that were availed to me through some of the board work and committee work that I've done over the last, 30 years.
It just helped you get a broader perspective versus just staying focused in one lane.
Indeed.
That makes sense. So, what does owning the payment experience really mean?
For an ISV,
Yeah.
I think it means everything. You know, uh, First of all, fundamentally, any investment banker will tell you that repetitive, revenue, is a great thing, right? So everybody likes to have that, that repetitive, um, billing type environment. But that's a very, old and very simple way to look at it. But if you look at it from where things are headed, where embedded products are headed, how payments are now part of a fully integrated merchant offering, I think that is just going to continue to proliferate. And I think that it's entirely important that the ISV participates from an ownership perspective of those payments. We've believed that for a long time. They provide value. And I think that if you look at any ISV in any vertical, the with fully integrated payments that they own versus no integrated payments that they don't own, the valuations are drastically different and much more favorable to those of whom have an integrated payment solution.
So, why is post transaction data just as important as our authorization?
Well, I think again it's that story. You know, you really that it's a timestamp. That authorization is a timestamp. Functionally, it's a timestamp that the cardholder has the credit available. The timestamp that I think of is what happened on this day at that time, what was bought, what was happening in that community around that merchant, what was sold, what was it sold with, what different combinations, and all of those things make that authorization, which has traditionally been thought of as a timestamp, makes it a much more valuable um, timestamp for what was working, what was not working, and how we can use that information to tailor the right path for that merchant's future.
We use an example when it comes to fine dining a lot. Can you share that with our audience? Because I think that really helps center this entire conversation.
Yeah, the restaurant business is tough, right? And I think that there are plenty of well-known solutions out there, and most of them are completely driven towards convenience, and then collecting light loyalty data during the customer visit to the merchant, and some other bells and whistles. But in the context of that authorization question that you asked earlier and how that fits in a restaurant is you go in and you look at a restaurant and you define that restaurant by that the type of restaurant it is, from a ticket perspective. So let's use a steakhouse for an example, and you look at that, and you're looking at repetitive spend, and you're looking at high spend, and then to have the ability, once you've understood your own data, to bring in, we're using AI to provide this business intelligence, but bringing in benchmarking data. And let's use kind of a zip code example where you would take 10 or 15 zip codes or any number of zip codes within a 10 square mile radius of other restaurants that have the exact same ticket size, and gauging your actual performance against what's out there, and being able to find out where you need to do more marketing, or maybe you need to close the restaurant altogether and go somewhere else because it's not working anywhere. But being able to drive how you expand your business, how you grow your business, where to market, what has some competitor moved in to a cluster of that area where you're not seeing the spend you used to, you were used to seeing or had seen prior. Those are the kind of the business intelligence tools that are at our fingertips and underscore what I said earlier about we occupy such a big space, but we do so little. If we were always there as a value added solution partner to the merchant community, we wouldn't be in this commoditized, race to zero environment anymore. We would be maybe the most important partner that any business, a restaurant business in this example, can have. And that's just a fact in the way we look at things.
To wrap this up, what can we expect on future episodes with some of these guests that we plan to have on the show?
Yeah, I hope we're already getting a lot of interest from a lot of our different partners. I think that what I would like to do, and it'll be a great education process for me as well, is bring in leaders who focus on a variety of verticals, empathize with what their pain points are, what their growth aspirations are, where partnerships have failed them in the past, and fill that empty space with what we can do, what we're doing today, and have it drive our roadmap for what we're going to do in the future. Because I think we're set up, we're agile. We've got a great team of folks that have been in the payment space and really understand that our mission is to really help our partners. And the only way we can do that is if we can be very fluid in being able to adapt and change and take that empathy gathering and make it actionable so that our partnerships can grow and be successful. To learn more about the topics we discussed today or to explore more about how modern payment infrastructure can support your business, visit toddlinden.com or woodforestpay.com. Thanks for spending time with us on Beyond the Transaction.